to The Wedding Common, and I'm your host, Amy, and today we are talking wedding planners. With your wedding being one of the most personal and important events of your life, it makes sense you'd want to hire a professional to help you organize all the details. Wedding planners are responsible for assisting clients in planning entire weddings or specific activities, giving guidance, organization, among many other things, I'm sure you can attest to that, to make sure that your wedding runs smoothly. So today, helping us to get to know the role of a wedding planner is Martine from Wedding MD. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your business.
So Wedding MD started as a rebrand.
Great.
My name is Martine Dardignac. That is where the MD comes from.
Love it.
I am also the person that is going to make sure that your wedding is in tip-top shape. So like any good doctor, I am there to diagnose your problems, find the right solution for you and your circumstances, and make sure that we can get to the wedding with the right prescription in hand. What I noticed was that as people would go into wedding planning, as they were getting ready to get married, everybody would lose their minds.
Yes.
Perfectly capable, practical, all-together people for their weddings, everything's a mess. Friendships were breaking up.
Oh God, yeah.
We were watching, families fall apart.
Yep.
Everything, when you get to the day of the wedding, was chaos, and I just felt there was a simpler way, and I really just wanted to help.
What do you enjoy most about being a wedding planner?
Actually being able to see my couples get to their party and enjoy it. Enjoy the reception, enjoy their wedding, enjoy each other, enjoy their friends and family, and not feel this sense of pressure and anxiety.
Yeah.
It's my favorite part of the wedding, is just watching them be able to kick back and relax.
So you get enjoyment out of watching them enjoy.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, awesome. So before we get into the logistics of wedding planning and what it actually involves, what's your creative process with wedding planning? Do you have one?
Yes, I do have a creative process. Primarily, my first go-to is making sure that I have a conversation with the couple themselves and ensuring I understand what their vision is for the day so that I can proceed from there. Once we have an idea of what they would like their day to look like, it makes my job easier in terms of coming up with the creative pieces, elements of it, finding the right vendor matches for them, etc. So first and foremost, we've got to have a conversation, need to talk about it and make sure that I understand what they're looking to do.
And that you both are on the same page.
Exactly. I typically send them back with homework after our first conversation. And
Which involves what?
I ask them to go prioritize their list of wants and desires. Make sure they understand what their budget is, where they're going with it. I know everybody likes to say we'll just spend whatever we want to spend, but money is real, and we do actually have to figure out where you want this to go.
Yeah. Do you like to connect with your clients? Do you feel like you need to be friends, or you business relationship, both? We're
going to be together for a very long time, and so it does make sense for us to be able to connect. So not every couple is for me. I am not for every couple. That's understood, right? And that's something that is very realistic. I have sent people back with this isn't what you really want. This isn't gonna work as well for you as you think it is. I like to make sure that I'm also recommending things that make sense for them and the wedding day that they're trying to envision. Ultimately, we do need to connect. We need to be able to communicate in a way that will actually help ease the process for them and ensure that we've got the creative elements and everything else that are going to line up, and that I can execute on the vision that they have for their day.
So let's talk about just the logistics of it. So let's say I am a new bride and I need a wedding planner. What do they do first? They reach out to you, call you, email? What do you
I am okay with any mode of communication. My phone is almost attached to my hand. And so it's really just kind of there all the time. Email, call, text, DM. I'm okay with all of it.
Smoke signal. Hey, here you go.
Stand in the corner, wave me down.
Carrier pigeon. We got the whole thing.
But ultimately, even once we've been able to connect, whichever way you're most comfortable with, I'm going to send you a survey to fill out. it helps to have it in writing. It helps you to go back and think about some of the elements as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm probably asking some questions that you didn't
think
that you needed to know the answer to.
Yeah.
So some of those things are helpful. Then once we've had a conversation, I've gotten the little questionnaire back, and I tell everybody the questionnaire is, look, it's not painful.
Yeah.
Answer what you know. If you don't know, that's okay too.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
You will not be quizzed on this.
Exactly.
After. There is not a test.
There's not a test. There's no prize for winning.
Yeah.
It's just so that I get a better sense of who you are and how you're moving through how you plan to move towards your wedding.
Great.
Once we've had that, and we've had the conversation, and we've been able to review answers to the questionnaire,
yep.
Then we can have a question about your priorities. What those are. That's the homework I sent you back with. Make sure that you understand what that is. Then we set up a session so that we can talk about design elements.
Okay, so that's my next question. Some wedding planners do design, some don't. What specifically do you do? What's kind of a general wedding planner?
I can do both. So I used to be a graphic designer.
Great.
I've got the design background. I've studied color theory.
Yeah.
I understand how that works, and because I'm interacting with, for the most part, all of your other vendors first. It's not a requirement, so it depends on where we led the conversation.
But people can hire you.
But they can hire me to help
design.
with the design.
Now, this may seem like a kind of silly question, but design meaning you're designing the tables, you're designing the flower, like what specifically?
Floor plans, tables.
Got it.
Finding the right floors for you. I'm not a florist.
Okay, yep.
But finding the right floors for you and making sure that you can have the proper decor elements that will suit your mood and your wedding specifically.
Okay.
So I like to make sure that I understand what those things are. Even ultimately, if you don't really need a designer, like if you've already got a perfect vision in your head of what you'd like, I need to know so that I can find the right people for you.
Yeah, got it. So you're like the orchestrator there, you are Right. Can you talk a little bit more about budget? I mean, we're kind of hopping around here, but...
Ultimately, like if you've got a dollar line amount, I can take that back based on your priority list and make sure that I'm getting you recommendations that fit into your budget.
Got it.
If you don't have a dollar amount in mind, then that's part of the homework that you need to go back and do.
Got it.
I need the top line number. I don't need, this is how much I would like to spend for photography, or this is how much I would like to spend for for hair and makeup. I just need a bottom line number so that I can get for the entire wedding.
Okay.
So that I can help you find appropriate matches for yourself.
Got it. And then you can kind of help budget because you do budget.
Exactly.
Okay, from there. Because I think that's confusing sometimes for, newer brides. They're kind of like, well, do I need a wedding planner because I can work my own budget? But you kind of do both, right? You can work with their entire budget and do it all for them, or just kind of assist.
I can also assist if that's what you'd like. Like if you already know, I also do coordination. So if you already know all your other vendors, you already have your budget mapped out, you don't need any assistance with design or any of those other elements. You just need somebody to make sure that the day is taken care of. We can do that as well.
Got it.
This is it depends on how easy you want this to be for yourself.
Yeah.
Because what I find a lot of the times with budget planning is that people have a dollar amount in their head as to what the wedding should cost, but they don't have any real world numbers as to how much it's actually going to be in the real world.
Yeah, and there's lots of hidden costs and venues and things like that, and tipping that they may not realize that you have a full grasp of.
Correct.
So a lot of couples may not understand that you can actually have a day of coordinator. So there are two different things. You have the options, and you do both. So if you want to help me kind of explain.
Absolutely. And just to be clear, there's a lot of industry lingo that not everybody else really needs to know, but it is important for you to at least understand where everybody is coming from.
Yeah.
So as a coordinator, or really what I'd like to call wedding management, I'll come in way before the day of. I will help you with a timeline. I will contact all your vendors. I'm going to ask you for information on what they've promised you to make sure that we can lay it out and all work as a team to get you the wedding day that you're imagining. Versus there are some people who might call themselves like day of coordinators, where they're just coming in for the day. That doesn't
different.
That's different.
That's
different, and that's not going to work for me. I will definitely help you with floor plans. I will definitely help you manage the space, make sure that everything is set up, make sure you've got a timeline, coordinating all your vendors.
Great.
All of those things will happen with wedding management.
Okay.
I cannot, to do my job effectively, just show up the day of.
Yeah.
Advice I always give is just know what you're getting, like know what you're expecting. And that's why it's so important for us to have a conversation to begin with.
Great. What an average wedding planner, I guess, would cost?
Well, everybody's different. And so I can't make any assertions for anybody other than me. But in my case, for wedding planning, if you want full service wedding planning, we start at $5,000.
Okay. And what does that include?
That'll include helping you find everything from the venue to the last fork that needs to sit down next to a plate.
Amazing.
We'll source all of the items that you will need for your wedding.
So it's like day one to the last minute.
to the last minute until you're
the last drunken person dancing on the dance floor.
Exactly. And that way we'll make sure we've got your design covered. We've got to make sure that we've got the actual planning elements covered. We'll make sure that we have the coordination covered. Everything is covered.
Got it.
Now, we say starting at $5,000 because there may be some things that increase that cost depending on what you need us to include for you.
Okay.
And so that's a conversation that we'll have after we've chatted and I understand what you would need.
Yeah.
For coordination, we typically start around $1,800 for coordination. That'll include everything from 2 months before the wedding through the end of the night on the wedding.
Great.
You have all your vendors already. Now we're moving into just making sure that they're ready to go with each other.
Okay. And what time frame are we looking at here?
Most couples, it's about 12 to 18 months out, but
that
if
they
they're
reach
doing
out.
full planning. For coordination, at least 6 months.
Okay.
Here's a tip though.
Love it. Love tips. I love tips.
If you really like a vendor, book them as soon as possible.
I will agree with that tip. That kind of leads to another question of mine. Do you book multiple weddings a weekend? Do you have a team?
I personally only do one wedding a weekend.
Great, okay.
I'm there for your rehearsal the night before, whether I'm doing coordination or full planning. Part of my job is to handle last minute emergencies, and so I want to make sure that I'm available to you to make sure that everything is covered.
Do you handle vendor contracts? How do you work with that?
I read through all of the ones that I get, and that's typically if I'm only doing full service planning.
Okay.
I will read through them and I will make sure that I note exactly any mistakes. We'll go back to the vendor and have those corrected. If there's any questions about it, I will talk through the contract with my clients. I am not a lawyer. I don't want to misrepresent myself there, but I do make sure that I look at them so that I understand what's being promised.
Great. Another question revolving a little bit of time and how much you're going to put into it in the beginning. How do you work with email? Like, how do you have an email limit? I know I've heard some planners have email limits or call limits.
I don't think that's fair, to be honest with you, and it would make it hard for me to manage because how do I count the time on an email?
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't want to misrepresent what I'm going to do for you. I'm also not going to track it, and so it would make it a lot harder for me to do that on an email limit or a phone limit, etc. I think that typically speaking, we're going to meet on the phone at least once a month.
Okay. That's good to know.
That's outside of meeting with your other vendors, etc. And so it's really more about making sure that you have what you need and that it's covered. When we first sign up together, like if you're doing full planning, we will probably talk to each other weekly.
Great.
And then it'll move to monthly once we've got kind of the bulk of the planning out of the way. Then when it gets down to closer to the wedding, like a couple months out, we'll probably meet weekly for a few weeks then.
Okay.
And then we move to like basically at that point, I've got all the information that I need and
now you get to go enjoy your wedding.
You get to go fly free.
What advice do you give wedding couples to how to be a good wedding couple to a planner?
We've connected already. we've had a conversation, we've agreed to what my role is.
Yeah.
I send out some information about what you can expect so that you have that there for you as well. But I think primarily it's just to let me do my job.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
And so we've already agreed to those terms. I have had some couples that have a hard time letting go.
Yes. Yes.
And I understand it, right? I get it. And that if that's where you know you're going to be at, maybe working with a wedding planner really isn't for you.
Yeah.
Because ultimately I need to be able to go do the job that you've hired me to do.
So trust. They need to trust you and trust that you're,
that I've got it and that I've got them taken care of and that I am only there in their best interest.
Yeah, which is interesting because this has come up with the majority of our vendors
right.
that we've interviewed on here. You know, just trust your vendors, trust your wedding planner. Try not to micromanage because we have got you.
I need that trust. I absolutely 100% need that trust because I'm going to do things like go find vendors that are suited to you. So if you don't trust me to do that piece, then we've got a problem.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to work very well.
Yeah. So how do you pick your vendors or how do you refer?
It really is based on the couple.
Yeah.
I like to make sure that I'm matching people with a team that's going to work for them.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer that you should know all of your vendors and that it should feel like a team.
Yeah.
That works for me, but that's most important for the couple.
Yeah.
Especially with things like a photographer, like they're going to be following you around all day.
All day.
Like if you don't like them, it's not going to be cool. I want everybody to enjoy it. So I really do like to make sure that I'm matching personalities and that I'm matching styles.
Great. And you feel like
budgets as well.
Yeah, yes. So styles, budgets, and personalities.
Correct.
Yeah, perfect. Do you also do RSVPs? Do you do the invitations? I didn't realize those could actually be a part of wedding planning.
Yes.
I thought like the wedding couple needed to do those themselves.
So to be fair, we're still going to need a list of people. I don't know your friends and family.
Do the work. Yes.
But I can handle RSVPs. Yes, that is a possibility if that's something that's really important to you.
Okay.
I always make sure that I get a copy of the guest list. Because when they're walking in, we have seating arrangements for everybody.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I can find them on a list if I need to.
Yeah.
I've set up websites for couples before so that they can RSVP right to the website. Personally, I feel like your best bet is, at the very least, to begin with, if all you've got is an email address, okay, I can email them a link to this site and have them go fill out their address.
Yeah.
And then it's perfectly formatted and it makes it easier to address envelopes later.
Got it.
It makes it easier to make sure that I can follow up on RSVPs later. We've got their proper names in there.
Is that usually a part of, or it's just kind of an option? Because I didn't realize that.
It's an option.
Okay,
it's an option. It isn't necessarily standard. Some people like their wedding websites separate. They want to set up something on.
Yeah, but planners can also make
wedding
a
wire. But I can
Yeah,
set them up for the couples, and I've done that before.
Got it.
It really just depends on what you're looking to do.
Which you're probably really good at from being graphic design.
Correct.
One hell of a wedding website there. Gorgeous.
Well, then it gets to be customized too. Yeah. Like you have a website that's just you as opposed to / something else. Right? Like it could be your website, which is what I want it to be for you.
Great.
So that's an option. It's an option that's available. But we can handle RSVPs. Like if you don't want to touch them, if you don't want to follow up on those RSVPs, you want to make sure that people are responding in a timely manner. Yeah. Because the hard part about RSVPs is that people don't.
They don't RSVP. Yeah.
We also do floor plans.
Great.
Which means that, to be fair, I don't know if there are any family issues from one side or another, but I can also help you adjust floor plans to the group that's coming, especially now with COVID.
Yeah.
We've got 6 feet apart from each other, and if this family is really sensitive or this one really has been out of the country, etc., and we want to make sure that people are spaced appropriately, I can help with that. I can help manage that and make sure that we're laying it out in a way that is easier.
That's great, because I think that's also another thing that has come up with other vendors is the familial relationships.
Right.
Which is great to have a planner for, because you can kind of help that and okay, we got to put this person over here and that person, and it'll be great with this table design, because then nobody will argue.
Right.
Or whatever.
Exactly.
Know?
But I do need that information, right? So I would have to know, I don't know what I don't know about your family.
Yeah.
So you would definitely need to let me know that piece.
Great. Do you organize the photos? I mean, or at least just round people up so that it makes the photographer's job easier?
I absolutely do.
Yes.
And that is one of those things that this is why it's important for me to go to the rehearsal so that I can meet the rest of your bridal party and the rest of your family.
Something else I didn't know. Okay, good.
So that when we get to photos, I can help round people up. I have had to go chasing after quite a few people.
Oh, I'm sure. Wait, come back.
They tend not to stick around, even if they've been asked to do so.
They're like the bar. They
get a little distracted. There are other friends and family around.
Totally.
So people tend to wander off, and my job is to make sure that I can help go find them, either me or my assistant.
Got it. So that whole part runs really smoothly, and
as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Yes. Perfect words for it, because there, as we discussed on the photography one with Tatiana, there is a time limit. There's only so much time to take these photos, so it's great to have a wedding planner there or coordinator to help move that smoothly.
Help rally everybody together, make sure that we've got them in groups as the photographer needs them, that everybody's kind of queued up and ready to go.
Also considering the familial relationships again with that too.
Correct.
We put them at the front and them at the end. Yeah,
right.
Because that's definitely a contemporary issue, Talk to me about rentals, day of logistics. Who sets up what? Does the florist set up the tables? Are you just, talk to me all about that.
So I am there to assist.
Okay.
We hire rental companies, technically speaking, depending on what kinds of rentals and which company you've hired. Sometimes they will set things up and sometimes they won't.
Okay.
I've got a floor plan. I've communicated that to all of your vendors. We're timing people so that they're coming in at the right time to set up whatever they're bringing.
It also depends on the venue, right?
It does depend on the venue. And again, I coordinate that with everybody, from soup to nuts. So it really depends. There are sometimes we'll have venues that have nothing, right? There no tables, no chairs, no anything else. So everything else is coming in from outside.
Okay.
Most rental companies do drop-offs.
Okay.
Which means we're going to need assistance actually setting up and getting everything together. But we will have talked about that and to make sure that we know who is there to set up.
At what time.
At what time.
Got it.
I would love to tell you that I am moving tables. I'm not moving tables. I have a lot of other things going on that day. And so it's really not something that I am capable of doing on my own, regardless. And so we do make sure that we've got the right people on hand to make sure that the setup happens.
Perfect. I would say, but you know of a team that can,
Correct.
that you can hire to do it if it's a raw space or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So just making sure that everybody's got, we've got everything set up in a timely fashion.
Great.
That's important to me. And so it's important to you too,
yes.
whether you know it or not.
Yes.
Just to make sure that everything runs smoothly that day. But we'll have that conversation once we know what space you're using and what's going to need to be brought in, along with which team you're choosing and operating with.
Great. So you also make the timeline. So that would be kind of the next thing. You have talked to them. We've kind of gone down the order. You make a timeline for the day.
Correct.
Okay.
So usually I will start with a conversation with the couple and follow that up with a conversation with the venue.
Okay.
Then I'll create the timeline based on information that I heard, plus the officiant.
Yeah.
It's very important.
You need an officiant.
Once we've had that conversation with those three, I will create a timeline and then I will send it out to every vendor for
their input. Got it.
If for some reason, remember at that point, I've already seen the contracts. I know what's coming. I know when it's supposed to arrive.
Yeah.
So typically speaking, by that point, it's fine and everybody is okay.
Yeah.
If for some reason there's some feedback or there's some issue, florist really needs to leave by 10.
Yeah.
The tables and chairs won't be there until 11. Then we rejigger a few things to make sure that we've got the timelines appropriate and that we can move as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
I do help with setup, but again, a lot of that is
like orchestrating,
exactly,
organizing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about breakdown as also part of the day of events. What happens with breakdown?
In some cases, especially if you've got rentals, whether it's from the florist or whether it's from another vendor, maybe you've bought in all the linens, etc.
Yeah.
I don't handle breakdown typically either. I'm happy to help again, but I want to make sure that everybody gets their materials back the way that they've asked for it.
Got it.
And so we have a conversation with each of your vendors to understand who is responsible ultimately. In most cases, the venue will help with breakdown.
Okay.
But keep in mind, if there are rentals there, they're not responsible for those rentals.
Okay.
And so something needs to be accounted for in terms of when are these vendors coming back for their rentals?
Got it.
Which way do we need them set up and laid out?
Yeah.
Making sure that the right team is there to gather and collect, and
who is taking the garbage out at the end of the night?
Right.
Who is the band, taking their own stuff? Okay.
Correct. So we talk to each vendor and make sure we understand what their plan is and how they're accounting for their own materials.
Got it.
But we also talk to the couple and help them understand, especially if it's a raw space. Somebody has to take that garbage out.
Yep.
Almost every single time.
Yep.
I typically suggest at that point that we either hire somebody or that
got a really good friend who wants
who wants to help
you
do that. I will tell you though, what typically happens with a really good friend is they are not necessarily the most reliable.
Yeah.
And so something has to be accounted for, like how we need to leave this space in the way that we found it.
Yeah.
We talk about all of that and we make sure that we have a plan for each vendor, all of their materials.
Great.
And for the couple as well.
Yeah, because that's definitely something that most wedding couples may not have considered or think about. That's part of the wedding. Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially with raw spaces, you really have to figure out what happened, every second of the night and where that goes at the end of the night.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So how do you make sure everyone sticks to schedule? Do you have like a special technique?
I do.
Just being organized.
I'm very friendly.
Okay.
So I'm
friendly but direct.
I approach with love.
Yes. Got it. It's a good way to approach, yeah.
But I am definitely making sure that I am reminding people gently that it's time to move on to the next thing.
Got it.
It happens.
Uh-huh.
A lot of our wedding vendors are also creative entrepreneurs.
Yep.
They're trying to
express themselves.
Express their art, make sure that you got what you paid for. The schedule is not the thing that is top of mind for them.
Yeah.
I have never known any couples, especially brides, really to be wearing or watching the time.
Yeah.
And therefore, somebody needs to be making sure that is happening.
Yeah.
That's my job.
And so, yes.
So I am watching. I do send text reminders as well, but I, technically speaking, just like to...
Your technique is love.
Yes.
Is approach kindly.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
We have about 15 minutes until our next activity.
And this is kind of minor, but let's say there's a cocktail hour in this room and then that's in the other room. Do you kind of get on the mic? Do you facilitate those things to move crowds? Whose job is that? Actually, the DJ, I guess?
Sometimes the MC,
or
the DJ.
Band,
or the band, depending. I usually give them a nice friendly reminder, like, could you make an announcement in a few minutes?
Got it. Okay.
That we're going to be moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And then that way it starts getting people to move in the right direction.
Great. Let's talk about venues a bit. How do you pick the right venue?
Again, one of those very personal decisions. But to me, it starts with, where do you want it? What do you want it to look like? And how much do you want to pay for it?
Yeah.
Those three things are the critical elements to trying to find a venue that works for you.
Yeah.
So start with a season. Start with the season.
Start with the season. Hey, that's actually number one. Okay.
If you don't have a specific date, start with the season.
Okay.
Do you want a winter wedding? Do you want a fall wedding? Summer, spring? You decide. But ultimately, once you've started with that, it'll make it easier for you to have that conversation with the venues. When you go in with the venues, again, you may not have the pricing. I help people with this again, so if you haven't done that homework.
Yeah. That's where you come in.
That's where I come in. I can help you do things like that. But it's also about a style, right? Like that ultimately you need to know whether you want a nice country barn wedding
or an Art Deco city, wedding.
Exactly. Another thing to keep in mind is how many people do you want in attendance at your wedding? There are kind of 3 or 4 basic questions that every wedding vendor is going to ask you. Yeah. Starting with the venue, which is how much is your budget? How many guests are you expecting? What is the date? Those are basically the first 3 elements. Another thing to keep in mind with the venue is, do you want people to stay overnight? Does there need to be a hotel nearby? Are people coming in from out of town? Are they going to be commuting from a church to the reception hall?
Do we need to find transportation between those? Do we need to find
transportation? How easy is that going to be for our guests? So a couple of other things to keep in mind as you're trying to select a venue. Just keeping in mind, how many people, where do I want it? What season do I want it in?
That's the foundation of it. The foundation of it all.
And then there are obviously much more specific questions once we get a better sense of your style, et cetera, that I can help you figure out.
Yeah. And now plan A, plan B, rain day, things like that. That's mostly up to the venue, right?
Right. And so with the rain dates, outdoor weddings, I always suggest having a tent. Because you cannot predict the weather.
But then you can help with tent rental.
You can help with tent.
Something else you may not have thought about.
Making sure that you've got the plan for in case we have inclement weather. I once did a wedding in a blizzard.
Oh my God, I've done a wedding in a blizzard too. What happened?
Well,
was it? I hope it wasn't outside.
No, it wasn't outside. It was indoors. There was required some extra timing to try and make sure people could get from point A to point B. And
did it actually happen?
It did happen.
Wow.
It happened late, but it happened.
It did. You made it happen. Were the guests able to arrive in the whole thing?
They were. We didn't have as many guests as we were expecting.
Yeah.
It was a whole conversation. There was a conversation with the bride. And, we'd asked her if she wanted to move it, but moving a wedding date is kind of hard.
So difficult.
And once you've kind of decided on something, but having a backup plan for inclement weather is important. And that was where I learned that very hard-earned lesson. Yeah.
Also, there's event insurance, which also people may not have known about. Do you help with that?
And so with the event insurance, just make sure that you're reading the fine print on what they will refund you for versus what they won't, because a lot of the insurance at this point, especially with COVID, it's not necessarily going to get you your money back.
Okay.
So just keep that in mind.
Do you have any etiquette advice?
Yes. You don't want your wedding party drunk. I don't know if you've had this conversation with any officiants in the past, but there are officiants who may decide not to marry you if you are drunk.
Oh, interesting. No, I haven't had that conversation.
So you may want to avoid that. So just in general, for your skin and the way that you're going to look in the pictures, it's a bad idea.
As a hair and makeup artist, I have seen many brides just get drunk as I'm trying to get them ready, and it's usually a total disaster. Yes, you look drunk in your pictures then.
Right.
Save it. Save
it for after. Okay. Save it for after the ceremony, at the very least.
Got it. That's a good etiquette. That's right. I wouldn't even think of that. That's very good etiquette. Anything?
So that's a good one. Yeah. I would also suggest that if there are any family concerns, that you have that discussion. We talked a little bit about this with the seating arrangements, but you have that discussion with your planner to ensure that we are aware of any situations that might arise.
You can put out any fires there.
Any fires. Make sure that you understand if you are getting married in a religious location, church, synagogue, etc., that you understand what their attire requirements are.
And that's communicated to everyone.
And that's communicated to everybody.
Yeah.
You may want to put something about the attire on your invitations even, depending on how strict the attire requirements are.
Yeah, great.
It really just depends on where you're looking.
Yeah, great. Real quick question. You have to feed your vendors, right?
Yes. This is super important. Most venues and or caterers will have an option so that you can have a discounted plate for your vendors, but they have to eat, right? And they're human. This is very important. They're going to be there all with you all day.
Yeah.
Everybody shouldn't be fainting.
Yeah, and especially on your end, you're there all day on your feet.
Correct.
You shouldn't be fainting. Very important that your wedding planner doesn't faint. I mean, or your photographer, or
I mean, it's definitely important, even beyond the vendors, wedding parties as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people plan for the reception, but they don't ever think about what's happening in the earlier part of the day.
Yeah, and so I was, as a hair and makeup artist, I am there in the beginning, and that's super important. I've seen a lot of, we go back to the drinking actually, a lot of wedding couples not provide food in the morning for, their vendors, hair and makeup are there sometimes for a long time. Same thing on our feet, but also their wedding party, and then they start drinking the champagne and everyone's hammered in 5 minutes.
Nobody's got any food.
Yeah, food's so important. And also for the bride or the groom, that you want to feed yourself before you go down the aisle. Because I always picture, well, this also goes back to being drunk, 16 Candles, where she takes the Valium and she's like playing with the, we don't want a 16 Candles incident, right?
No.
Right? But yes, talk to a little bit more about that, or is that?
Well, besides the drinking, the fact of the matter is it's a long day, and you may not realize it because there's so much excitement and there's a lot of things happening. But if there is no food available, it will be felt a whole lot sooner than you want it to be.
Yes, which means you do have to order extra plates, am I right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So there usually is a table for the vendors specifically. I always insist that they get fed when the couple gets fed.
Perfect timing.
Because we have to go back to work.
Yep.
And so we want to make sure that we have eaten and are good to continue, and that we're not missing any of the other important moments that come after.
Exactly. That you're energized, you're present, so you don't miss the moments, miss the timing, miss the photo.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. So what is the biggest cause of stress for weddings?
What I have seen is it is trying to articulate what you want versus what your parents might want for you.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
There's typically a disconnect between what the couple wants and what they are trying to do for their big day versus what their parents might want. That might mean number of guests, that might mean location, etc. The best way to combat it, in my experience, is to make sure that you know what your plan is. Meaning, in other words, if you can articulate what your desires are and wishes are, when you begin planning, it will make everything so much easier.
Now, articulating that to you or to the parents?
To the parents, to me, both.
Got it.
So I will help. I will help you come up with a plan if you need me to. I'm also happy to play bad guy if you need me to.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you don't know what's on your top 10 list and you don't understand what those things are, every idea sounds like a good idea.
Got it. So being really specific and knowing what you want.
Know what you want.
Makes the whole process so much easier.
And once you know what you want, make sure that everybody else knows what that is.
Got it. And so communicating with the family that may have a totally different idea.
Correct.
Yeah, that's tough because, I know for family relationships, it's kind of like sometimes they're subject to the parents' budget if they're paying for it.
Ultimately, this day is about
them,
the couple.
I agree.
That doesn't mean that your parents are not important in the process, or even, whether they're paying or not, that you wouldn't consider what they would want as well.
Yeah.
The goal is to ultimately, your parents better than anybody else. You understand how
that relationship works,
and how to speak with them, making sure that they understand where you're coming from. But what I find a lot of the time is because the couple doesn't necessarily know.
Got it.
Then all the ideas start piling in
And
from all the friends, from all the family.
Way too many cooks in the kitchen.
Way too many cooks in the kitchen.
I experienced that as a single vendor. I think all the vendors do when there is too many cooks in the kitchen. It is so problematic.
Right.
So yeah, on a larger level in planning a wedding, that can be disastrous.
Correct. And so the best way to do that is make sure that we know what that plan is.
Yeah. And be really specific. That's why you're here. That's why you're here. Great. Well, thank you, Martine, so much for being here. This has been so informative. I say this every time. I've learned a lot. But this was so in depth. Yeah, this was so in depth because there is so much, obviously, to planning because you're dealing with almost every aspect of the wedding. Thank you so much for watching. If you like our videos, please subscribe below, and we will see you next time.